Hello, Africa, wherever you're watching from Ghana, Angola, Mozambique, Togo, Guinea, or wherever you're watching from across Africa. Welcome to this special live stream where we'll be talking about Africa and jobs on the rise across the continent of Africa, and of course, the skills that are influencing it across Africa. And of course, we are looking to help you who are watching this show get some answers in terms of where is Africa's talent being muted? Is it being muted at home? Is it before the interview? Is it, of course, in career services at universities and colleges? We're looking to answer those questions on this show. The Africa Jobs on the Rise survey has been really going out to get real market intelligence on what are the jobs that are rising across the continent of Africa, and of course, what skills are influencing those jobs. We have reached out to talent acquisition professionals, higher educational institutions. We have reached out to colleges, universities to find out what are those skills that are influencing jobs on the rise. And now the survey has closed. This show today is not about giving you the survey results. Today is all about how we should be looking at talent first before we bring talent in and develop it and have that talent lead and sustain our organizations. So, the conversation today is the talent across Africa being muted, missed, or just misread? And of course, we'll look to answer some questions today. And of course, today's question is that question of is it muted, missed, or misread? And of course, I like to be open and transparent because when we talk about talent in Africa, there's a common expression that we like to have, an expression where we like to hide behind when it comes to jobs and, of course, economic opportunities. That expression is the lazy expression called skills gap. And we'll be unpacking whether it's really a skills gap or there's a lot more that's hidden beyond that expression itself. And of course, today I want to welcome people that are watching and are watching this live. So if you are watching this live, you can jump into the comments and let me know where you're watching from and which country you're watching from so that we can give your country a special shout out, because Africa is not one country. Africa is a continent, and we have had voices coming from North, West, and Central Africa. And today, we're speaking to you, the job seekers, those who have been laid off, those in career services, those in talent, and those, of course, who have an interest in the future of Africa. And speaking about the future of Africa, I'm not going to have this conversation alone. So, to help me have this conversation in LinkedIn and, of course, YouTube. If you are watching, this is the time where I need you to get into the reaction space and help me welcome a subject matter expert that's going to help us have this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Katy Mthethwa.
Good morning, Stuart. Thank you so much for having this conversation.
Well, listen, Katy, I wanted to bring you onto this conversation because your work sits in a very special place. Your work sits right at the middle of belonging, education. It sits at that epicenter of cultural intelligence. It sits at human development and ultimately, of course, in workplace inclusion. That's why I needed you to come on this, because before someone writes a CV, that cover letter, before they meet a hiring manager, before they apply, they already know whether their voice will be heard in that room or not, right? Or am I wrong in terms of what you do?
Absolutely. They'll have an idea of whether their voice will be heard, whether they feel like it belongs. And yeah, they bring all of that with them into that interview.
Well, we'll be talking a lot more about belonging here, Katy. But before we even jump into that, here's a question that befounds job seekers, right? And this is across from whether you're an early career starter or you've recently been laid off. Because across Africa, when I talk to hiring managers, when I talk to recruiters and talent acquisition, they say that when talent comes in, the talent is not work ready. What are they really saying? What's hiding behind those words?
think there are so many aspects to what's behind that. One element for me would be, we often talk about critical thinking. I think our education systems are still stuck in many ways in developing learners
Okay.
and developing thinking skills. And so having candidates, having employees who have learned to think, who have learned not to just, everyone can think, but to have learned to express their thoughts and have language to talk about their thinking is definitely one element. Um, I also think that understanding that as you learn, it's about so much more than subject content. And so structures where we're still learning and regurgitating information are obsolete when it comes to the real workplace today. And what we need is education that forms critical thinkers and that helps a child understand. Like my daughter once said, oh, what's she good at school? She's good at asking questions. She's good at thinking curiously, organizational skills, but she's not so good at collaboration and she needs to work on that. And I was like, oh my word, I was expecting English, maths, whatever. That's work ready, is understanding yourself beyond subject matter.
Understanding oneself beyond subject matter. I love that. Katy, there's a couple of people who have been already joining in who are looking to understand themselves better, and let's welcome them over with. So please help me give a special shout out to a couple of people up here as we say good morning and hello and welcome to the special African Jobs on the Rise survey. Nyasha, please call out some names and say hello. We got people joining in
Good
from
morning,
Zimbabwe.
Yasha. Hi there, Catherine. Hey, Nairobi. Good morning,
Great.
Mark. Reagan. Hey. Good
Also,
morning, Tony.
we we got people joining from around the world, which is fantastic because this conversation matters because the future of the world depends on Africa and its youth.
Mhm.
So we've demystified the question when we said when what do employers mean when they say that people are not work ready? Well, maybe let's move the conversation over to when we go into the when we go into the workplace and we bring in our African background, cultural nuances, which is very respectful, can that look like low confidence?
So, when we understand that we can develop cultural intelligence, the idea there is that we can identify how someone is expressing uh, through their behaviors, their beliefs around, for example, respect. And so respect in some cultures can look like low confidence from another cultural perspective. So
Mm.
someone who doesn't engage in eye contact because within their cultural norm, that's disrespectful. Or someone who has been taught, I mean, a classic in many African cultures is that you don't speak up to authority unless invited. And even then, it's with caution. Um,
Mm.
so children are to be seen and not heard. They can't question their teachers. They shouldn't question adults. They must respect authority in a very, I want to say, silent way. In an interview setting, in a meeting with your manager, respect in being waiting to be invited to speak can look like you don't have the confidence to speak up and step out. And
Right.
so we understand the cultural nuances, it changes the frame through which we see that silence, not as being a confidence issue, as being one of respect.
All right. Well, Katy, I want you to keep that train of thought as I start taking you over into a little bit of a game. And I want everyone who's watching, and of course, those of you who are in HR, to participate in this in a little bit of a game called the Talent Case. Because, Katy, I want to give you 5 real world cases. These come from hiring, education, career transitions, i.e., those who have been laid off, to the workplace itself. And I want your first instinct, Katy, and those of you who are
Hmm.
in this live stream, of course, put your comments in and let's keep this conversation going beyond the live stream. Katie, I want to know, is talent being missed? Is talent being misread? Or is talent being muted, and specifically in Africa? So, 5 cases, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Born ready. Let's get going. All right. So, case number one, Kate, it is about the quiet candidate, or what others prefer to call the weak candidate. And here I'm talking about a graduate who has qualifications, a graduate who goes into interviews and says very little during the interview. Is it because they lack ability? Is it because maybe they lack confidence? Or is it a poor interview design on the part of HR? Or is it cultural conditioning? Or is that room that they're in has never invited them to show up and show up as themselves?
I would say, or an element of all of those. Um, I think definitely a quiet candidate might just be an introvert, but silence or quietness should never be seen as an indicator of capability.
So, what should the
Sometimes
interviewers
it's
change then? What should the interviewers change? Because they're listening right now.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, creating that psychologically safe space where someone feels that you want to hear their voice, you're not here to question it and critique it. You want to understand what they think in answer to your question, and you're not there just to judge them. And so, like a genuine wanting to understand what that candidate is bringing of themselves, and I think sometimes those softer skills, bringing out that element of humanity in conversation, um, brings a sense of like I'm valued as I am for who I am. But
Mm, mm.
yeah, people bring their past experiences and prejudice and issues that they've experienced in the past and beliefs about whether their voice belongs. So saying we want to hear your voice in this interview. We want to know what you stand for. We want to understand you. Um, I think that communicates something different to just a question and answer.
Well, if you are one of those job seekers right now, here is the answer that Kate is also giving you, is that silence is not always a lack of ability. Katie, we don't have too much time, so let's go into case number two, which is the case of respect or the lack of initiative. And in this case, let's put a scenario to this. We're thinking of a young employer in a work environment where he works with a lot of senior people, and that young employer really challenges those senior leaders, right? And this happens across Africa. Respect is taught real early in our lives, in our careers. But inside organizations, that same respect and behavior can be interpreted differently, right? So, how easily can respect, hierarchy, deference be mistaken for a lack of confidence,
A lack
or a
of
lack of
confidence. So,
leadership? Yeah, or lack
or
of leadership.
initiative. Yeah. So again, the understanding the dynamics, the cultural dynamics in that relationship. Where does the power sit in that relationship? The power sits with the employer, usually, not the employee. And yet, if your employer is one who says, you don't question me because of my cultural values, and now you're being, as the candidate you're questioning, there's a disconnect. Similarly, if the employer says, you can question me all
Mm,
you like,
mm,
and you never do, there's a disconnect. And so, what we need to do in our organizations is develop cultural intelligence. CQ, we call it. And intelligence, any intelligence can be developed. If cultural intelligence can be developed. And so, it's not necessarily about initiative. The other element in here that's so important is whether you understand the people in your team or your leadership as collective, that they see themselves as collectivists or individualists. I grew up with an individualist culture. I have permission to volunteer myself, to speak up, to take initiative. If I'm from a collectivist cultural preference, I might not think that I can just put myself forward without a request, without the validation of others or the
Mm.
support of others. So again, just nuances in culture that we really need to understand.
All right. So leaders need to learn about that cultural nuance and, of course, learning how to lead with that cultural mindset as well. Well, Kate, let's move
Yeah.
on to case number 3, which is a case of maybe polish versus potential. And in this case, my scenario is this: I have two candidates. One is, of course, and both are at an interview, right? And at this interview, one performs brilliantly, and the other performs not so brilliantly. And again, in this scenario, one has stronger evidence and one has less polish. In the real world, Kate, and particularly in Africa, which candidate usually gets rewarded and what risks do we run by doing that?
Great question. So I think we need to recalibrate our lens beyond the first impression, because our first impression has bias. And so to look deeply, as you're suggesting, beyond that initial facade to what is beneath. So if you have doubted your voice in spaces, you might not come across as assertive and polished in that way, and yet your
Right.
potential is enormous. And so I think looking beyond that surface to you can polish something, but it's hard to create potential. The
So we
potential needs to be there.
I love that. We need to hire for potential and stop rewarding presentation before capability. All right, Kate, let's move over to case number 4 as we keep it going on this pre release conversation of Africa Jobs on the Rise, the 2026 survey. The results are not part of this conversation. This is the lens before we have the results. And what we're talking about is maybe are we looking at talent wrong before we hire it, before we develop it and bring it into our business? Next, Kate, I want to look at case number 4, and you've had the chance to think it through, which is, of course, the
Mm.
situation where someone is qualified, but maybe not market readable. And the situation is, of course, that we have universities that say we're producing graduates that are work ready. And then we have employers that are turning around and saying, well, they are not work ready for us. And yet, you also have students, on the other hand, saying, no one taught us how to translate what we've been taught into work that we can do. So, where is the real gap? Is it the qualifications, the evidence, the confidence, or is it the bridge between universities and the employers?
So again, I think that some of our systems look for things to be presented in a certain way. And so access, I would say there's an access question here. What
Mhm.
access has someone had to having their CV polished, to having their certain skills refined? They've got the potential, but has there been the refinement? And then if your CV is going through a system where it
Mhm.
is being judged, um, yeah, where it's being judged, how can you see what's not in it? Especially now with technology, which just sees are all the keywords there or not.
You're
If you
right,
don't even
right.
know about keywords because you've not had access, there's challenges. So I think
Mm,
there's a lot
mm.
of talent and qualification there that is not being read by the market through our systems.
Ah, yes, access, of course. And more importantly, for those of you who are looking for jobs, I think what nugget Kate gave away there is that as much as you're presenting yourself, you need to present yourself with evidence. So, beyond going beyond the keywords, let's at least have evidence that you can actually perform because the market hires evidence and it doesn't hire what it cannot see. Katie, let's go to case number 5. We're bang on 20 minutes. And I'm going to ask those of you who are watching to stay with us because we're going to take no more than 7 minutes. I hope not. Because if you have to dash, you can always come back and watch this replay, which will be available both on YouTube and, of course, on LinkedIn. Katy, let's take us to case number 5, which is speaking to a lot of people right now, because as you know, around the world, there's been a lot of layoffs that are taking place. And there's a lot of people that are currently experienced and are feeling invisible, because what's happening is that these professionals with 15 to 20 years of experience right now have experienced a job loss, and they're entering a job market that is rapidly changed, because after that loss, for the last couple of months, all they've been hearing is that you're not quite the right fit, you have too much experience, or so my question is, what is actually being misread? Is it their experience? Is it their title? Is it the layoff that they've recently just gone through? Is it the salary expectations that they might demand a lot more money? Or is it how they're presenting themselves today?
That's fascinating. So my expertise is definitely not in those who have been laid off and are coming back, but I think there's some similarities to the context of whether you feel like you belong, and the disqualification that you can have of yourself as you enter a job market, whether it's having been laid off and now you've been struggling to find work for the last 18 months, or whether you have grown up not knowing whether your voice is of value or being heard because of your experience in the world around you. And so for either, I think that security in your own identity, belief in what you bring, and your authenticity, you don't have to have necessarily the best qualification and be the expert to have a voice, to have belief in yourself, that you can present yourself, that you can bring what you offer to a space.
I love that. Thank you for sharing nuggets in terms of what people can start doing for themselves. And of course, like I said, we've got people joining from around the world, Katy, people who are talking, of course, about their perspective and, of course, their feedback on it, some of the comments that you've made. So, Katy, we are going to move over to the point where we're going to move over to questions. So those of you who have questions, please get into the comments section and ask questions so that we can start commenting on them. Katy, let's see if we got any questions. I am getting a first read of these. So, folks, let's be polite, and hopefully they've used language that is internet ready. So let's see if we have any questions so far. Katy, do you see any questions? I see a lot of greetings and I see a lot of shout outs from people. And of course, I see here Mark makes a point here that the bridge between universities and employers is the cause. And I guess he was answering that question in terms of where's the gap. Career days have become a thing of the past in most universities in Kenya. Oh dear, we need to bring those back. Not only do we need to bring back career days, but of course we need to bring in internships, simulations, and give people the opportunity to get access to jobs. But as we start wrapping up this live stream, we should ask ourselves as we end off, where exactly is talent being missed? Where is talent being misread? And of course, where is talent being muted? Is it within our homes? Is it in the way that we present jobs? Is it in the way that we interview people? Is it in the way that we, as job seekers, present ourselves to the world of work? Katy, we could have spoken forever, but of course, we have run over time. I want people to go out and find out more about you and your amazing organization. And they can go and find you, of course, on the internet. But maybe one sound bite from you for those who've been watching, what would that be?
So we could end with the analogy of talent being like a seed.
Okay.
And unless we are culturally aware, some markets only recognize the seed if it's sprouting in familiar soil. With cultural intelligence, we learn to see the seed's potential even before it breaks the surface.
Love that. Love that. You got to say it one more time. Let's make sure we've got this, right? And hold on a sec here, Katy. I'm going to spotlight you here to make sure that you get your message across. So go on, Katy, give it to us.
Talent is like a seed. Some markets only recognize the seed once it's sprouting in familiar soil, where the culture around them is as theirs. But with cultural intelligence, we learn to see the seed's potential even before it breaks the surface.
Absolutely love it. And I hope people have got something to take away with them. And of course, the conversation continues right here on LinkedIn or on YouTube as we get ready to release the Africa Jobs on the Rise results. And of course, what we are looking to do is to answer some of those questions that job seekers have, those who set up curriculum, those who hire, those who set up our organizations for success. We have a ton of answers for you. And when can you expect those answers? You might be asking yourself. Well, in terms of when the results will be coming out, on the 21st, which is next week on Tuesday, we have a special session. And that session is going to be the session where we will bring in, let me bring in the slide specific for it. There you go, where we're going to have a conversation, and I'll be bringing back Nyasha from Ajua, who has been helping us with this conversation. He's going to be coming back into the stream to help us unpack the results from the survey. The people who are going to be getting access to these results are going to be the people who responded to the results. And of course, members of the press and those who are involved in volume hiring across Africa. So if you've been a respondent by now, you should have received your invitation. If you haven't, go check your inbox or check this. And of course, the comments that we've got on this particular stream, where we're giving you access to sign up and join us for the 21st, where we're going to be giving you results for the Africa Jobs on the Rise survey. Those will be for purely the respondents. And then after that, on the 28th of July, we go public and we tell the world what results we have seen about jobs, skills, and work readiness. This will be based, of course, on the real market intelligence that we have been gathering from across Africa. So thank you, HR directors. Thank you, talent acquisition professionals. Thank you, those in recruitment, staffing, universities that have participated in the survey from across Africa. We are now getting ready to give you the results. So let's make sure we've got this all correct. What's coming up is on the 21st, we're going to have a respondents only session that's going to be taking place live on LinkedIn for those who have signed up and who participated in the survey. And on the 28th, we'll go live with everybody. Now, as we end off this live stream, I had a couple of questions that you should be thinking about as you go home today or as you continue with your day. So HR, let's think and let's ask ourselves, are we muting talent? Are we misreading talent? Or are we missing talent? And those who are in hiring, are we making it easy for talent to tell its story? Are we overemphasizing on polish instead of looking for potential? Those of you who are in universities, let's think about our curriculum in terms of how we prepare those in work, those in our schools to be ready to transition directly from the classroom into a career. And of course, those of you who are looking for jobs right now, you already have some nuances on what's happening in the world of work. Make time for learning. Show the world what you can bring in terms of impact, results, and skills so that the world hires you. And of course, we thank you for joining us on this live stream where we've been trying to resolve and answer some of the questions around where is talent missing, being muted, or just being misread across the continent of Africa. The data is coming. Yes, the data is coming. The Africa Jobs on the Rise survey will be coming out soon. So stay tuned and make sure you've signed up in the links that are available in the comments below so that you can participate and get your voice heard. Thank you very much for joining us. With that, I wish you a productive and a successful day ahead. And of course, let's keep the conversations going in the chat itself. Thank you. I wish you a productive day. Goodbye.